When the team of engineers and scientists drilled into the mesa of Skinwalker Ranch, they encountered not rock but resistance, something impenetrable, metallic, and intelligent in design. The drill heads fused from friction but emerged cold. Ceramic fragments came out shimmering dense and heat-retentive beyond comprehension. Under electron microscopes, they behaved like living materials, shifting and healing under exposure. The pattern was geometric, too precise for nature. When cooled, they repelled magnets, superconductors buried half a kilometer underground. It wasn't just a discovery, it was evidence of advanced manufacture far older or far newer than anyone could explain. Simultaneously, their LiDAR mapping revealed an enormous invisible sphere, the bubble. Inside its 2,000-foot radius, every electronic instrument failed. GPS signals warped. Rockets veered off course. Drones froze mid-air. Radiation detectors hit zero, and signals repeated at perfect frequencies as though mimicked by a sentient echo. When the team detonated charges to study air movement, smoke rings twisted into asymmetrical forms, colliding with something unseen. Every time they introduced energy explosions, lasers, or electromagnetic pulses, the bubble responded. And when the bubble was energized, objects appeared, UAPs flashing above the mesa, glowing orbs invisible to the human eye but burning bright and infrared. Thermal footage captured streaks of heat crossing the mesa ridge, followed by bursts of cold as if space itself had inverted. A stationary GPS unit suddenly registered movement 20 miles north, though it had not moved an inch. The bubble seemed to alter space-time data itself. One by one, instruments failed, drones halted, cameras reset, and computers rebooted. Yet through the failures emerged patterns, as if the bubble had an algorithm rules that punished intrusion but rewarded persistence. The researchers realized they were not observing a natural anomaly. They were interacting with technology and architecture of the unknown. Experts convened in Salt Lake City to review the evidence. Veterans of government UAP investigations confirmed the implications: superconducting ceramics with self-healing properties, aerospace metals coated with aluminum oxide decades before humans adopted the process, and electromagnetic bubbles responding to energy like controlled plasma fields. Was the mesa an ancient containment structure? A crashed object hidden under decades of geological sediment? Or a terrestrial research site built using extraterrestrial technology? No one could answer. But every piece of data heat absorption, magnetic repulsion, anomalous GPS drift suggested a coherence, as though the ranch itself was a machine. The future of the investigation would extend into orbit. SEOPS, in partnership with SpaceX, agreed to deploy a CubeSat satellite specifically programmed to monitor the ranch's coordinates from space. Each day it would scan for signals, radiation spikes, and gravitational distortion, searching for a bridge between the phenomena underground and those streaking through the Utah skies. The team's mission was no longer about proving legends. It was about decoding an invisible architecture that connected Earth's crust to its stratosphere, a geometry of power that defied the laws of physics. The Skinwalker Ranch mystery had evolved from folklore to frontier science, and in that transition, humanity took one hesitant step toward the unknowable. When the drilling began at the base of the Utah Mesa, the scientists thought they were searching for geological anomalies. What they found instead was an entrance into the unknown. The Earth resisted in unnatural ways, as if it were protecting something. Drill bits made of titanium fused solid, their teeth stripped clean. The temperature readings from the drill head made no sense. Thousands of degrees of friction should have melted the metal, yet when retrieved, the bit was cool. Inside the slurry among mud and stone appeared fragments of a strange ceramic material uniform, as if pressed by machinery. It shimmered faintly, even in the lab's cold light. To the human hand, it felt alive, warm, almost responsive. The scientists ran test after test. When submerged in liquid nitrogen, the ceramic refused to cool, boiling the nitrogen violently for several minutes. It was behaving like a reservoir of trapped heat or energy. When they placed it over a magnet, the sample lifted ever so slightly, trembling in the air, the unmistakable signature of the Meissner effect, the phenomenon unique to superconductors. Materials that can conduct electricity without resistance, releasing no heat, are the holy grail of physics. Humanity had not yet perfected stable room temperature superconductivity. Yet here inside a rural mesa lay an artifact that appeared to do exactly that. Under the scanning electron microscope, the surface revealed a microstructure that changed when exposed to an electron beam. Holes opened like pores in organic skin, then closed again when the beam was shut off. The material healed itself, reverting to its original smoothness. The experiment was repeated multiple times, with both coated and uncoated samples producing identical results. Control tests using standard ceramics yielded nothing. There was no natural explanation this was technology. Machine-made, intelligent. Archaeologist Chris Roberts studied the excavation residue and discovered not only these ceramics, but also metallic fragments coated with aluminum oxide, a protective layer identical to what NASA and SpaceX use on spacecraft to resist extreme heat during re-entry. The coating technology was developed in the 1,960 seconds, the era of the Apollo missions. Yet these artifacts were buried deep within a mesa, hundreds of feet below solid rock. Imstranga, AUS? Nickel from 1,964 was found in the same soil layer. Archaeologists sometimes leave coins in backfill to timestamp an excavation. This suggested that a dig had occurred in that very spot more than 60 years ago. Someone had been there before, perhaps a secret team removing or concealing something extraordinary. As the scientists debated the implications, the anomalies spread upward into the sky. Using LiDAR and radar, they discovered a vast spherical distortion encompassing the ranch roughly 2,000 feet across. Instruments began to fail when they crossed its invisible threshold. Drones froze midair. Rockets changed direction. GPS readings drifted miles away. Radiation meters dropped to zero. Radio frequencies multiplied as if the air itself had started to echo. The team named it the Bubble, an unseen architecture made of energy rather than matter. To understand it, they decided to energize it. Working with pyrotechnics experts, they detonated massive fuel charges at various points along the bubble's perimeter, releasing enormous mushroom clouds followed by smoke rings. The goal was to visualize how the air behaved within the bubble. But the smoke rings twisted unnaturally, forming distorted figure eights breaking apart at precise altitudes. Cameras recording the experiment reset themselves to factory settings, erasing crucial footage. Spectrum analyzers detected signals at 1.2 and 1.6 gigahertz, the same frequencies captured during previous UAP encounters. At that moment, thermal cameras recorded luminous objects, streaks of heat moving over the Mesa Ridge before vanishing. The bubble seemed to respond to energy inputs almost as if it were aware. Every explosion, every electromagnetic pulse, every burst of light elicited a reaction. When lasers were fired across the ranch, the beams bent flickered, and in one documented image, a glowing object intersected a red laser midair. Seconds later, several laser systems shut down simultaneously. Drones hovering near the bubble's edge registered phantom obstacles, preventing them from entering. A stationary GPS sensor at Homestead 2 inexplicably moved 20 miles north in its digital record while physically remaining in place. Space and data themselves had begun to distort. What had been dismissed as myth was becoming reproducible evidence. The bubble wasn't random atmospheric interference, it was a structure, a kind of containment field. The scientists realized they weren't merely observing, they were interacting with the technology. The following months turned Skinwalker Ranch into a live laboratory. High-speed cameras, thermal drones, gamma detectors, and spectrum analyzers were deployed day and night. Patterns emerged. Every electromagnetic event within the bubble corresponded with sudden GPS drift radiation dropouts or unidentified aerial phenomena. It was as though an invisible intelligence was calibrating the field in response to human experiments, adjusting variables to maintain balance. When the team convened in Salt Lake City to present their findings, they were joined by military and academic figures who had once investigated UAP phenomena for the U.S. government. Jay Stratton, the former director of the Pentagon's UAP task force, led the review. Alongside him sat astrophysicist Dr. Eric Davis, Stanford geneticist Dr. Gary Nolan, and retired Air Force General Lance Lord, former commander of U.S. Space Command. The scientists played back footage of the Meissner effect, the glowing ceramics and the LiDAR scans of the bubble. They watched the smoke rings split, the frequencies spike, the drones freeze. No one could dismiss it as coincidence. General Lord observed that the material's composition resembled aerospace-grade ceramics used to protect spacecraft, but of a sophistication decades beyond any public technology. Dr. Nolan noted the self-healing lattice of the ceramics, comparing it to biological self-regulation. Dr. Davis hypothesized that both the buried materials and the bubble could belong to a single integrated system, a field generator or containment device. It could explain the recurring electromagnetic distortions, the apparent manipulation of gravity, and the correlation with UAP sightings. The mesa and the bubble were not separate phenomena. They were likely parts of the same architecture. The room fell silent as Jay Stratton summarized what everyone was thinking, but hesitant to say, we may be studying an engineered system operating within our atmosphere, not of our design. It was a conclusion that forced a shift in perspective. Perhaps the mesa wasn't concealing debris from a crash, but an intact mechanism, one buried intentionally, shielded beneath layers of sediment and electromagnetic camouflage. The bubble, then, would be its active field, a living perimeter responding to intrusion. The implications went beyond the scientific. If such technology had existed since at least the 1,960 seconds, then someone military, corporate, or extraterrestrial had known. The discovery of the coin and the aerospace coatings hinted at human involvement. Could the site have been an experimental Cold War research zone using materials derived from recovered craft, or was it something humanity stumbled upon and tried to contain? The debate turned philosophical. If intelligence exists within or around this technology, is it watching us as much as we watch it? For ranch owner Brandon Fugel, the answer was clear. This was no longer about chasing legends. It was about confronting a reality that merged physics and consciousness. He announced a new phase of the investigation collaboration with SEOPS, a SpaceX integrated aerospace firm, to launch a satellite dedicated solely to monitoring Skinwalker Ranch. The satellite, a Compact 6U CubeSat, would orbit Earth and pass over Utah, daily scanning for electromagnetic signatures, gravitational anomalies, and thermal fluctuations. From orbit, it could triangulate data between space atmosphere and ground. The CubeSat represented humanity's attempt to look back at the phenomenon from above, to see whether the bubble extended beyond the atmosphere or connected to something cosmic. For the team, it was a symbolic leap from the soil of the mesa to the silence of space. If the bubble was an interface, perhaps the key to understanding it lay not underground, but in the heavens. As the year drew to a close, the ranch was blanketed in frost. The mesa stood immovable, concealing its metallic core. The bubble above remained invisible but detectable, humming faintly in the electromagnetic background like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. The scientists left with data enough to fill volumes, but answers that only deepened the mystery. In their minds, Skinwalker Ranch had become more than a location. It was a message. The ceramics spoke of mastery over matter, the bubble of mastery over energy. Together, they suggested an architecture of power woven into the planet itself, unseen but omnipresent. It could be ancient alien or homegrown, but it was undeniably intelligent. Each discovery drew them closer to a dangerous idea that human reality is being shaped not from outside, but from within, by a technology integrated into the Earth long before our arrival. The ranch, in that sense, was not an anomaly. It was a mirror reflecting the limits of human perception. When the first satellite finally lifts off aboard a Falcon 9 rocket, it will carry more than sensors and cameras. It will carry a question. The same question whispered in the desert wind at night, rising from the mesa and fading into the stars. Are we discovering something new, or are we being reminded of something we once knew and forgot? For now, the instruments rest. The bubble sleeps. But its geometry remains invisible and perfect, wrapping the mesa like a thought around a secret. It is not merely space, it is intention. A design that bridges energy, gravity, and time itself. A machine built not to move through the universe, but to bend the universe around it. And somewhere inside that silent, invisible sphere, the boundary between human and non-human intelligence dissolves, leaving only one undeniable truth. We are no longer alone, not in the sky above, nor in the earth beneath our feet.